If I'm not honest with myself, if I'm not acknowledging my feelings, if I don't even know how to identify my feelings, I'm putting that out into the universe. I'm attracting the same into my life. Hey fam, what is good? Welcome back to my channel. If any of you are new here, thanks so much for dropping by. Get comfy, get cozy. Check out some of my other videos. Don't be a stranger. Hit that subscribe button to join the family. Welcome to each and every one of you. All right, I have a confession. I am really drained right now, mostly emotionally, a little bit physically, so please bear with me. Anyway, I am just getting back from my therapy session, and y'all, today's session was needed. It was like the universe telling me, sis, you got some more work to do when it comes to emotional codependency. Also, on the way home, I had this huge aha moment that I want to share with you guys. So let's get started. In today's session, we discussed my dad. And he is someone that I rarely mentioned because he's been pretty MIA for most of my life. Now, for those of you that have seen the other videos in this series, you can kind of fit the puzzle pieces together. But if you're new here, check out that description box so you can check out the other videos. But in the meantime, I'll give you guys a little bit of history. So my parents were teenagers when I was born. My dad was like 18 or 19, but shortly before my birth, he decided I wasn't his kid. So he skipped town, made a new life for himself, got married, had a son, and that was his life. I went to live with my grandparents around the age of 4, maybe 5. Memory's a little bit hazy, but regardless of the age that I went to live with them, eternally thankful. Best thing ever. I remember seeing my dad once in 6 years. Perhaps he was around more. I have no memory of it. When I was 6, my grandparents split and my grandmother and I ended up moving in with my dad. And I remember being so excited. I didn't really know who he was, but I thought he was cool. He actually rocked locks at the time. And I thought it was so amazing to be able to live with my dad, my stepmom, my baby brother. And I remember for a hot second, I tried to pull off my dad's here and he allows certain things that were not permissible. They didn't really fly with my grandmother. But I got put in my place very quickly by my grandmother. At the end of that year, my grandparents reconciled. And before moving, I remember sitting in the car with my dad and I asked him if I could live with him. And in so many words, he told me no. And I asked him, why not? And he never really gave me an explanation. Now, I have to let you guys in on something. Even as a 6-year-old child, I was very much intuitive, very observant. My grandmother had this policy of being very honest with me and answering all of the questions that I asked in as honest a manner as she could. So his roundabout way of not answering my question wasn't good enough for me. But he told me no. And at the end of that year, my grandmother and I moved back to Alabama. Fam, I am eternally thankful for my grandfather. He was the perfect thing that God could gift me. I have no idea where I would be without his solid, unwavering presence and love in my life. Eternally grateful to God for giving me my grandfather. And it was because of my grandfather that I never really felt a lack. I knew I had a dad, but that was my dad who was somewhere living his life, running his business. I had my grandpa, and my grandpa was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Yes, I said it because you guys should know by now, I'm an old soul. My grandfather was the absolute best thing in my life. That conversation that I had with my dad at 6 was the last one I had with him for 11 years. The next time I heard from him, I was 17. And y'all, it was so weird. It was so awkward. There had been no communication between us for 11 years. And when my dad came back in my life, I was like, okay, this can be cool. This can be great. But I need answers. So what's good, Pops? Where you been? How's life been? Well, why are you here now? I'm glad you're here, but I need honest answers. And my dad was unable to give me those honest answers. I realized he is still hurting. He's in search of answers. He's in search of love. He's still a little kid inside. He's emotionally unavailable. He cannot serve in the capacity of dad. And it hurt me, but the way my pride was set up back then and the way my mind had been conditioned, I wasn't even aware that I was feeling, let alone what I was feeling. But I knew that he couldn't, he was unable. He lacked the ability to be my dad. That was 11 years ago. Last year, my dad and I had a conversation that turned pretty passionate very quickly. But in that conversation, I was able to express my dissatisfaction and my frustration at the lack of his presence in my life and that of my girls. But I was met with hostility, with excuses, and I realized that my dad was still in that position of searching. He was still emotionally unavailable. And it really, really sucked because honestly, I want a dad. And I want my girls to have a granddad. But I realized that he couldn't be that for me. And as the accusations and the excuses continued, I realized this is very unhealthy and I cannot allow it in my life anymore. And so I ended up blocking my dad. Somewhere along the way, I unblocked him and he called me last week completely out the blue and he said, "Hey, it's good to hear your voice." Okay. And then he proceeded to tell me that I was his daughter, he loved me, and he apologized for the distance that he created. But it wasn't enough for me. And I'm sorry if that's wrong, but it was not enough for me. It wasn't good enough. I needed more of an explanation. And so I just sat quietly and I listened to him and I asked him, I was like, "Are you sick? Are you dying? Because this is so out the blue and it doesn't sound like you at all." And when I was recounting the story to a friend, my friend told me, "Yo, sometimes you can't ask, just go with it. Like, listen, which is so true." But just all the hurt and the pride and all the unanswered questions, I was not in that mood to just respond with love and be open and listen. Yeah, we win some, we lose some. So when I explained all of this to my therapist, she asked me, "How did that make you feel?" It took me a little while to identify my feelings. But I told her, I'm the type of person that if I get a sincere apology and an explanation, then I'm focused on, okay, where are we going from now? What does the future look like? What are we doing, in this moment? How are things going to change? And my therapist looked at me and asked me again, "How did the conversation make you feel?" And after a few minutes of kind of grappling for words, I told her, "You know what? I just wish he would acknowledge my feelings. I wish everyone in my life would just acknowledge my feelings sometimes." And when I spat that out with some emotion, something told me, "Hey sis, what's going on? Let's get to the bottom of this because you're still operating in emotional codependence." As I drove back home, I had this huge aha moment. And I thought, sis, whoa. Okay, now you're getting deep. Yes, it is important that the people we allow in our lives respect us and acknowledge our feelings. But how often are we acknowledging our feelings with ourselves? How honest are we with ourselves about how we feel about a situation? If I'm not honest with myself, if I'm not acknowledging my feelings, if I don't even know how to identify my feelings, I'm putting that out into the universe. I'm attracting the same into my life. How can I expect that another person will take that time to acknowledge my feelings if I'm putting out into the universe that I don't acknowledge my feelings? I'm not honest with myself. Y'all. I got back home and I journaled about some situations that have been heavy on my mind. And when I first started writing, I was holding back. And then I was like, no, go deeper. And my heart kind of fluttered a bit. I was like, oh my gosh, am I ready to get this intimate with myself? Like, woo-wee! This is deep. And I was like, if I cannot do this with myself, how can I expect anyone else to reserve space for me to do it with them? And how can I extend that to other people? And so I got really deep, fam, and I felt it in my heart. I felt like these little layers of coldness just melting away. And that honesty with myself empowered me, and it gave me courage to make decisions that I should have made some time ago. Y'all, it is about the relationship we have with ourselves. Truly, it sets the tone. It defines the integrity of every other relationship in our life. So I just want to encourage you, and I want to continue to encourage myself to get intimate. Get cozy and comfy with being intimate with yourself. Be honest with yourself because you deserve it. I deserve it. All right, I got more work to do. I have more journaling to do. I need to wash my hair. But I am wishing you all a wonderful weekend. I love you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if anything resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit that subscribe button to join the family so you don't miss a single video. And I will see you in the next one. Remember, you are the best. Peace and love.